He told her people like her didn't belong in his company. Today, she signs his termination papers. The marble floors of Reynolds Enterprise gleamed like polished ice as Maya Johnson's worn sneakers squeaked against them. Her heart pounded, but her back was straight as steel as she clutched her folder. Inside it, her ticket to escape the poverty that had defined her entire life. Marcus Reynolds didn't even bother standing when the 17-year-old black girl entered his office. The $50 million view of downtown Chicago stretched behind him, a testament to 3 generations of white privilege and old money. His suit cost more than Maya's mother made in 3 months as a hospital janitor. "You're the scholarship applicant?" His voice dripped with disdain as he glanced at her secondhand blazer from Goodwill, the one her mother had carefully ironed that morning with their temperamental thrift store iron. The one with the perfect scores. Maya's fingers tightened around her MIT acceptance letter. "Yes, sir. I ranked first in my class of 600 in my AI algorithm for predictive healthcare." "Tell me," Reynolds interrupted, leaning back in his Italian leather chair, "how many generations has your family been in this country? Where exactly do you come from?" The question hung in the air like poison. Maya's throat tightened, but she forced herself to maintain eye contact. "My family has been in Chicago for 5 generations, Mr. Reynolds. My great-great-grandmother was a—" "Let me be clear." Reynolds cut her off again, standing now, his 6'2" frame towering over her. "This scholarship isn't just about test scores. Reynolds Enterprise represents a certain heritage, a tradition of excellence that spans generations. We have an image to maintain." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs, but her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. "When they show you their hatred, show them your excellence." "Sir, if you could just look at my project portfolio, I've developed an artificial intelligence system that could revolutionize." Reynolds slammed his hand on the desk. The sound made Maya flinch, but she didn't step back. "Listen carefully, girl. I don't care if you've invented the next Silicon Valley miracle. This scholarship goes to people who belong here, people who look like they belong here. Do you understand what I'm saying?" The other committee members, all white, all men, stared at their notebooks, their silence a deafening endorsement of Reynolds' words. "My father built this company from nothing," Reynolds continued, his voice thick with contempt. "He didn't do it so that people like you could—" "Your father didn't build it from nothing," Maya said quietly, surprising even herself. "He built it with $1 million loan from his father in 1962, while black business owners couldn't even get bank accounts." The room temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. Reynolds' face turned purple with rage. "Security," he barked into his phone. "We have an unwanted visitor in the executive suite." As 2 guards approached, Maya gathered her documents with trembling hands. But before they could reach her, she turned to Reynolds one last time. "You know what the difference is between you and me, Mr. Reynolds. Everything you have was given to you. Everything I have, I had to fight for. And I'm not done fighting." That night, in their cramped 1-bedroom apartment, Maya sat on the fire escape, her laptop balanced on her knees. Through the window, she could hear her mother crying softly, thinking Maya couldn't hear. They'd pinned everything on this scholarship, their hopes, their dreams, their chance at a different life. Maya opened her coding program. The AI healthcare algorithm she'd mentioned, the one Reynolds hadn't even bothered to look at, glowed on her screen. She'd developed it after watching her best friend's grandmother die because she couldn't afford proper medical care. The program could predict health complications weeks before they became critical, potentially saving thousands of lives. But more importantly, Maya had discovered something while researching Reynolds Enterprise for her application, something that would shake the company to its core. In her research, she'd uncovered a pattern in their hiring practices, their contract awards, their heritage scholarship recipients. She had data years of it, showing systematic discrimination. As police sirens wailed in the distance and the elevated train rattled their building's foundation, Maya began to type. She wasn't just fighting for a scholarship anymore, she was fighting for justice. And Marcus Reynolds had just made the biggest mistake of his privileged life. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Maya Johnson was about to change the face of the tech industry forever. And Reynolds Enterprise would never be the same. Maya's rejection story went viral overnight. Not because she posted it, she was too busy working, but because one of the committee members, racked with guilt, leaked the security footage to social media. The clip of Reynolds calling security on a brilliant black student spread like wildfire. But Maya didn't want social media fame. She wanted revolution. She took the one thing Reynolds couldn't take away, her mind, and turned it into a weapon. Living on ramen noodles and coffee, sleeping just 4 hours a night, she expanded her healthcare AI project into something bigger, much bigger. "Baby, you need to rest," her mother would plead, bringing her sandwiches at 3 a.m. "Can't stop, Mama," Maya would reply, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "Not until it's done." While Reynolds Enterprise's PR team scrambled to contain the backlash, Maya received an unexpected email. Sarah Chen, an Asian American venture capitalist who'd faced her own battles in tech, wanted to meet. "Your algorithm," Sarah said during their meeting at a downtown Starbucks, "it's not just healthcare prediction, it's bias prediction. You've created an AI that can detect systematic discrimination in any organization's data." Maya smiled for the first time in weeks. That's just the beginning. With Sarah's seed funding, Maya launched Johnson Analytics from her mother's kitchen table. The company's first product, a free tool that could analyze any company's public data for patterns of discrimination in hiring, promotions, contract awards, everything. Reynolds Enterprise was their first case study. The results were devastating. 20 years of documented bias laid bare in irrefutable data. Stock prices plummeted, shareholders revolted, but Reynolds remained untouchable behind his wall of inherited wealth and corporate lawyers. Until Maya's second breakthrough, she developed an AI-driven healthcare platform that could provide medical predictions at 1/10 the cost of existing systems. Hospitals across the country began adopting it, especially in underserved communities. Lives were being saved, but more importantly, every success was a blow to Reynolds Enterprise's outdated medical technology division. "You can't compete with us," Reynolds sent her a threatening email. "We've been in this business for 50 years. Maya's reply was simple: "Time's up." By year 3, Johnson Analytics had secured contracts with 30 major hospital systems. Maya hired hundreds of employees, prioritizing brilliant minds that other companies had overlooked. Her company culture became legendary, not for its ping-pong tables or free snacks, but for its radical inclusivity and merit-based advancement. Reynolds Enterprise, meanwhile, was hemorrhaging clients and talent. Their stock had dropped 60%, but Maya wasn't done. She discovered something in their code, a fatal flaw in their main healthcare software, one that Reynolds had been warned about but ignored to save money. The decision keeping her up at night wasn't whether to expose it, but how to do it without putting patients at risk. Then came the news that changed everything. Reynolds Enterprise was being forced to sell their healthcare division. The board had finally turned against Reynolds, and Maya knew exactly what her next move would be. But what she didn't know was that Marcus Reynolds had one last card to play, one that would force her to choose between justice and mercy, between revenge and something far more powerful. The chess game she'd started 5 years ago was about to reach its climax, and this time, the stakes weren't just about a scholarship. They were about the soul of an industry. The headline shocked the business world. Johnson Analytics bids to acquire Reynolds' healthcare division. Maya's company, now valued at $4.2 billion, had become the front-runner to buy out the very division that Reynolds had once deemed her unworthy to even intern in. But Marcus Reynolds wasn't going down without a fight. "You think you can just walk in here and take what my family built?" Reynolds thundered during the emergency board meeting. Maya sat calmly at the opposite end of the conference table, her simple black blazer a stark contrast to his bespoke suit. But this time, she wasn't a scared teenager. She was a CEO whose software had saved over 100,000 lives. "Mr. Reynolds," Maya replied, her voice steady, "your healthcare division lost $300 million last year. My offer is 40% above market value. But more importantly," she pressed a button on her laptop, "I know about the software glitch." The color drained from Reynolds' face as the data appeared on the wall screen. Lines of code showing a critical error in their patient monitoring system. Emails warning Reynolds about the risk. His orders to bury the reports. "That's confidential information," he sputtered. "No," Maya corrected. "That's evidence. Evidence that you knowingly put profits over patients' lives." The boardroom erupted in chaos. Board members whispered frantically among themselves. Reynolds' lawyers huddled around him. But Maya wasn't finished. "I'm not here for revenge, Mr. Reynolds. I'm here to fix what you broke, both in your company and in this industry." But that night, alone in her office overlooking the city, Maya received a call that changed everything. Reynolds had suffered a massive heart attack, and in a cruel twist of fate, he'd been taken to a hospital that used his company's faulty monitoring system. The same system Maya had discovered was defective. She stared at her phone, her hand trembling. With a few keystrokes, she could let events take their course. Reynolds would become a victim of his own corrupt decisions. Poetic justice. But Maya Johnson hadn't built her company to perpetuate harm. She'd built it to heal. Within minutes, she had her team deploying their AI system to the hospital, overriding Reynolds' outdated software. The same technology he'd dismissed years ago was now fighting to save his life. Hours passed as Maya paced her office. The irony wasn't lost on her. The girl he'd deemed unworthy was now holding the power of life and death over him. But this wasn't about power. It was about proving that excellence knows no color, that innovation comes from the places society often ignores. At dawn, her phone rang again. Reynolds had survived, and what the doctors found in Maya's AI analysis had revealed an underlying condition that would have killed him within months if left undetected. But while Reynolds recovered in his hospital bed, his world was crumbling. The board voted unanimously to accept Maya's acquisition offer. The empire he'd inherited was slipping through his fingers, transformed by the very person he'd tried to keep out. What no one expected was Maya's next move, one that would stun the business world and force everyone, including Reynolds, to confront their deepest prejudices. Because Maya Johnson hadn't fought just to win. She'd fought to change the game entirely. Maya stood at the podium in Reynolds Enterprise's packed auditorium, now rebranded as Johnson Health Technologies. The room buzzed with anticipation. Reporters lined the walls. On the front row sat her mother, tears of pride streaming down her face. But it was the figure in the back of the room that caught Maya's attention. Marcus Reynolds, thinner now after his heart attack, watched from a wheelchair. His empire was gone, but something in his eyes had changed. Today, Maya began, we're launching the Future Innovators Program, a $500 million initiative to provide full scholarships to students from underserved communities. But this isn't just about money. It's about changing who gets a seat at the table. She paused, letting her words sink in. Every student will be paired with a mentor from our executive team, and our first mentor. Maya looked directly at Reynolds. Mr. Marcus Reynolds has volunteered to lead the mentorship program. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Reynolds straightened in his wheelchair, his face unreadable. Mr. Reynolds approached me in the hospital, Maya continued. He didn't ask for his company back. Instead, he asked for something more valuable, a chance to help dismantle the very system he once defended. The cameras flashed as Reynolds wheeled himself forward. His voice, once so dismissive, now trembled with emotion. 5 years ago, I made a decision based on prejudice rather than potential, he admitted. That decision nearly cost me my life, but through Miss Johnson's, through Maya's innovation, and more importantly, her compassion, I learned that true leadership isn't about maintaining traditions of exclusion. It's about creating traditions of excellence. Maya revealed the program's first recipient, a young Hispanic girl from South Chicago who'd developed an AI system to detect water contamination. As the girl accepted her scholarship, Maya saw her younger self in those bright, determined eyes. But the real surprise came when Reynolds pulled out a document. His hands shook as he held it up. This, he announced, is the deed to the Reynolds family estate. I'm donating it to be converted into a technology innovation center for underserved youth because it's time for new traditions. The room erupted in applause, but Maya wasn't finished. She motioned for silence. Change isn't just about replacing one power structure with another, she declared. It's about transforming how we view power itself. Today, we're not just launching a scholarship program, we're launching a movement. As the ceremony ended, Maya found Reynolds waiting by her office. Gone was the arrogant CEO who'd crushed her dreams. In his place sat a humbled man learning to see the world through new eyes. I'll never be able to fully make amends, he said quietly. Maya smiled. It's not about making amends, Mr. Reynolds. It's about making a difference. The sun set over Chicago's skyline, casting a golden glow through Maya's office window. On her desk sat her mother's old badge from her janitor days, framed alongside her first rejected scholarship application. Reminders not of bitterness, but of how far they'd come, and how far they still had to go. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and join our movement for change. Share in the comments. What traditions do you think need to be transformed in your industry? Remember, excellence knows no color, no gender, no zip code. It just needs a chance to shine. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from the people society tries to break down. Today's rejection might just be tomorrow's revolution.